DAVCOR Group has been around since 1988. We're 62 people strong. DAVCOR Group is a world-leading designer, distributor, and manufacturer of locks for the professional market. We decided to automate the warehouse because for us, this was the next step on our automation journey. We'd always been fairly automated, and it was time for us to move our warehouse, and we wanted to see what next. What should we do next? Well, look, it was fairly daunting because we are a small company. We're only 62 people. The amount of picks we do a day, which is around 1,000 picks, doesn't really suit a lot of the high-end automation systems. So it was fairly daunting. And I must admit, at the beginning of the search, I wasn't sure that we'd actually end up going down the path of automation. I chose AutoStore because I looked at absolutely everything from all around the world, whether it was distributed in Australia or not. It was such a big decision for us. I wanted to make the correct decision. The more I looked, the more I kept coming back to AutoStore because I wasn't even sure that our business was suitable for automation because we're fairly small. We only do around 1,000 picks and around 300 putaways a day. At some stage, I thought, no, automation's not for us. It's going to be too expensive. We're not going to get the ROI. But we ended up coming back to AutoStore because it ticked those boxes for us. Well, our return on investment was quite remarkable. It was under 2 years. We hadn't planned for it to be under 2 years, but we actually got a few advantages that we hadn't counted on. So the two big ones were the amount of stock ullage, and ullage is a lovely word for stock loss. And the other one was energy. We hadn't really factored an energy saving, but it was immense. You know, our energy bill went down from our old place from around $9,000 a month to around $1,200 a month. We previously had a reasonably automated system that we actually designed ourselves. We're pretty proud of it, that used conveyors and sortation and man-up pick trucks along narrow aisles, and it was quite a complex system that while we were very proud of, it did give us a bit of grief over time. Well, it was complex to run, it tended to break down, it needed a lot of maintenance, it needed a huge footprint. If you can imagine, we had this huge conveyor carousel in our warehouse that needed a lot of space. Our AutoStore system consists of 14,000 tubs, 10 robots, and 4 carousel ports. The thing that surprised me about the system is we've had it 4 years and it's been more robust than I anticipated. When you look at how it works, one of the things I was concerned you have these spindly little cables that drop down to 5.5 meters and pick up 30 kilos of weight. And I assumed that that would break down more frequently. We've almost never had that sort of breakdown. We've had components wear out, etc., but they were fairly easy to change. So I've been quite surprised at how robust the system is. In terms of service and maintenance, 90% of the stuff we do ourselves. With the really tricky stuff, we get our dealer to help us with. Our implementation timeline was quite incredible. We found ourselves in quite a pickle in that our old lease was almost up, and we had 4 months to build the building in a greenfield site and install the AutoStore, which, believe it or not, was done on time. In terms of business, well, the cost savings is immense. If you have an ROI of under 2 years, going forward, your return is fantastic. So our biggest saving was space, followed by staff, followed by energy, followed by stock loss. And then there's less measurable things like being more accurate with your stock, your customers being able to trust your stock levels better. so you're being more consistent. For our staff, the AutoStore system has been fantastic. The biggest point is on work health and safety. Touch wood, we haven't had an injury in 4 years as a result. There's no lifting or bending. Your port is at the perfect height to pick and put away. So that's been awesome. It's not as tiring. They don't have to walk around a huge warehouse as much. And we're able to bring staff up to speed way quicker. We can bring a new person up to speed in under a day and have them picking at a reasonable rate. Well, the big challenge for anybody is moving a warehouse. And fortunately, our operations manager was very smart about it, and he pre-packed all our stock into boxes that we could fit into the just drop into the totes of the AutoStore. And as a result, we were able to move a warehouse comprising of around 7,000 totes in 3 days and be up and running by the 3rd day. So that was pretty cool. The benefits we've experienced during COVID for us is, fortunately in Australia we haven't been as badly affected as other places, but I guess it was just the peace of mind knowing that we had a number of people working from home, and if somebody did catch COVID in the facility, we could have swapped out teams fairly easily without having to close down the facility for very long. The major piece of advice I've got for people considering automation, and I guess more so to do with AutoStore, is to rethink how you do put away and receiving. And the big lesson we learned, because we were trying to figure out how to do put away, and it was getting very complicated how we'd have to bring totes of like product to the ports and stage things in order. But I guess what we realized is if we put away to empty totes, we didn't need to sort our inbound put away, which meant inbound became very simple, but it had a lot of other flow-on effects. And the major flow-on effect is if you always put away to an empty tote, it means you can always count your stock to 0 and have a continuous stock take without really much work at all. So as a result, our stock has become incredibly accurate. Put away is incredibly easy. The only thing you have to pay in return is you do need extra totes. So my advice is however many totes you get, you're going to need more. When it comes to implementation, the only thing we would have done differently is plan for more totes and more ports. AutoStore will help you size the system, and their sizings are accurate. However, you can always do with more totes and you can always do with more ports. The major benefit, well, although I'm a huge fanboy of the system, I think, there's wonderful parts to it in terms of stopping stock loss, making sure that pickers only have a single pick face, all the above. The major feature of any system has to be return on investment, and our return on investment on the system has been fantastic. Essentially, we're a business-to-business supplier. We do around 1,200 picks a day, around 400 orders, and around 200 to 300 putaways a day. However, in terms of how many picks an hour we can do around 600 picks an hour, because one of the negative parts of the system is our customers are now trained to know that we can pick at any time and still get them their goods. So they tend to order very late in the afternoon, knowing that they'll still get their goods. So we can then throw 3 or 4 people onto the system and every port can pick. And as I said, we can pick up to 600 picks an hour. Bin digging is not really an issue for us. It's not something we think about because bin digging and picking are 2 separate actions. So although our warehouse staff aren't working 24 hours a day, the robots are. So as soon as an order comes through the web, the robots start digging for bins, bringing them up to the top, and when it's time for the pickers to pick, the robots just drop those bins that are already at the top down to the pickers. So the robots essentially staging the bins ready for picking, so the pickers can hardly keep up with the robots shuttling them new bins. As far as energy consumption goes, the energy saving was crazy. It was almost 85%, primarily of being able to move into a smaller facility. And also we no longer had conveyors and forklifts, which consumed an enormous amount of energy, whereas these things, consume a vacuum cleaner's worth. It's crazy. Look, you're never too small to automate, but yeah, we went through the process and we were a bit concerned, maybe it's too much for us. But in terms of complexity and in terms of return on investment, it ended up a no-brainer. The system's far easier than it looks. And in terms of could we afford it? Well, in the end can we afford not to do something like this? We started off with 10,000 bins and we quickly realized that that wasn't enough. Not so much that we didn't plan well, it's just a lot of our bulk started migrating into the AutoStore. So we decided to expand it by 4,000 bins. Two of the great things about AutoStore is firstly, you can expand in an irregular fashion. Our layout is fairly irregular in terms of our AutoStore. And secondly, it was pretty fuss-free. It took a few weeks and we went live over weekend, so there was no downtime. The thing about the AutoStore that you have to realize is it's a giant conveyor system. And the beauty about it is you can program it to do a number of things that you may not have considered in the past. So you have this enormous flexibility with it of moving things around.